I walked in early from work and found her on FaceTime with her affair partner, wearing the necklace I bought her. She just smirked and said, "Relax, he notices it more than you ever did." I didn't argue, but weeks later she learned who the necklace really belonged to. She was wearing the necklace, my great-grandmother's necklace, the one that had been passed down through 3 generations of women in my family, waiting for the one I would marry. And she was showing it off to another man on a video call. I had just walked in the door 2 hours early from a business trip and found her laughing, tilting her head so the diamond caught the light. When she saw me, she didn't panic. She didn't even end the call. She just smirked, a cruel, confident little smile, and said the words that ended our life together. "Relax, he notices it more than you ever did." I didn't say a word. I just smiled back. She thought the necklace was her prize, a symbol of the life she was stealing from me. She had no idea that the necklace itself was the trap. And in a few short weeks, when she tried to sell it to fund her new life, she wasn't just going to learn who it really belonged to. She was going to learn what it costs to betray my family. The silence in my car on the drive home from the airport was the last moment of peace I would have for a long time. I'm 42, I run a private equity firm, and my life is built on precision, strategy, and understanding the true value of an asset. I thought my relationship with Catherine, my girlfriend of 3 years, was one of my most stable assets. I was wrong. Catherine is 33, a former art gallery curator who now, thanks to my financial support, runs a lifestyle consulting business, which is a fancy way of saying she tells wealthy people what to buy. She's beautiful, charming, and ambitious, qualities I thought I admired. We lived together in my penthouse apartment, a place that had been in my family for decades. The business trip was supposed to last until Friday. I wrapped it up early, a rare win, and decided to fly home on Wednesday to surprise her. I let myself into the apartment quietly, expecting to find her working in her office. Instead, I heard her voice, light and flirtatious, coming from our bedroom. I pushed the door open and the scene imprinted itself on my brain. Catherine was lounging on the bed, propped up on pillows, her laptop open in front of her. On the screen was a man's face, someone I'd never seen before, handsome, in a generic gym and tan sort of way. They were laughing, and around her neck was the Beaumont necklace. It's not just a piece of jewelry, it's a custom-made Cartier piece from the 1920s, a cascade of diamonds and sapphires that belonged to my great-grandmother. It's the centerpiece of my family's estate jewelry, managed by a private trust. It is, to put it mildly, priceless. There is a tradition in my family. The Beaumont necklace is not given, it is presented. It is loaned to the woman a Beaumont man intends to marry, as a symbol of her acceptance into the family. It is returned to the trust upon divorce or death. It never, ever truly belongs to the wearer. It belongs to the family. I had presented it to Catherine 6 months ago, on the night I proposed. She had cried, said yes, and seemed to understand the gravity of what the necklace represented. Now she was using it as a prop in a flirtation with a stranger. When she saw me standing in the doorway, her eyes widened for a fraction of a second. The man on the screen, whose name I would later learn was Julian, looked confused. Catherine recovered instantly. She didn't slam the laptop shut. She didn't stammer an excuse. She held my gaze, a defiant glint in her eye, and delivered that line. "Relax, he notices it more than you ever did." The disrespect was so profound, so absolute, it was almost stunning. She wasn't just cheating, she was mocking my family's legacy to my face. The hurt was a physical blow, but my entire life has been about managing high-stakes situations without emotion. The investor in me took over. The asset was compromised. The partnership was terminated. Now it was time for liquidation. I didn't yell, I didn't argue. I gave her a slow, deliberate smile. "I see," I said, keeping my voice perfectly level. "Well, don't let me interrupt." I closed the bedroom door, walked into my office, and shut the door. The first call I made was to my lawyer. The second was to Mr. Dubois, the elderly, fiercely discreet jeweler whose family had been managing the Beaumont estate collection for a century. I explained the situation in calm, precise terms. Mr. Dubois, who had known me since I was a boy, was silent for a moment, a silence that conveyed more outrage than a scream ever could. Then he simply said, "The trap is set, Thomas. Let me know when you are ready to spring it." My plan began to form. cold and clear in my mind. Catherine's betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was a strategic miscalculation of epic proportions. She saw the necklace as a financial asset she could leverage. She had no idea it was actually her greatest liability. I spent the next hour in my office, not packing a bag, but securing my life. I transferred the bulk of our liquid assets from joint accounts into a private one. I changed the passwords on our home security and all my personal accounts. I drafted an email to our building's management, informing them that Catherine would be moving out and her access rights should be revoked on a specific date. When I walked out of the office, she was waiting for me in the living room, laptop gone. She had changed into a silk robe, her arms crossed, ready for a fight. She sounded completely bored. "Are you going to throw a tantrum now?" "No," I said, walking to the bar to pour myself a whiskey. "There's nothing to argue about. You've made your position clear." "So that's it? You're just going to be passive-aggressive?" "I'm not being passive," I said, taking a sip. "I'm being decisive. We're done, Catherine." She laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You can't be serious. You're breaking up with me because I was talking to a friend? You were flaunting my family's legacy to your affair partner. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a declaration. And I accept." "Fine," she spat. "I was getting tired of this stuffy apartment anyway. Julian has a place in the Hamptons. I'll be out by the end of the week." She said it with such confidence, such entitlement. She truly believed she could just walk away, necklace in hand, into a better life. "Good?" I said. "That aligns with my timeline." She stared at me, confused by my lack of rage, my calm acceptance. She was expecting a scene, begging, drama. She wasn't getting it. The unknown was making her uneasy. She walked back to the bedroom, and I heard her on the phone, her voice low and urgent, likely telling Julian the good news. Let her believe she was in control. The market always corrects, and a massive correction was coming for her. Update 1. 1 week later, thank you for the comments and the support. It's a strange situation, and writing it out helps clarify the steps I've taken. For those of you who think this is just about a piece of jewelry, you're missing the point. It's about legacy, trust, and the consequences of profound betrayal. Catherine moved out 2 days after the confrontation. It was a cold, efficient process. She hired movers, packed her designer clothes and the art she'd picked out for the apartment, and left. She took the necklace, of course. She wore it out of the building, a final act of defiance. I didn't stop her. The trap wasn't ready yet. The day she left, I had the locks changed and the apartment professionally deep cleaned. Erasing her presence felt like closing a bad trade. The financial separation was swift. My lawyer sent her lawyer a formal notice of the end of our engagement and a breakdown of our separated assets. Her lawyer's response was predictable. They argued that the Beaumont necklace was a premarital gift and therefore Catherine's personal property, with an estimated value in the 7-figure range. My lawyer's response, drafted with the help of Mr. Dubois and the trust's legal team, was a masterpiece of understated power. It stated that the necklace was not a gift, but a conditional loan from the Beaumont Family Trust, and we had extensive documentation to prove it, including the original acquisition papers from Cartier. A century of insurance policies listing the trust as the sole owner, and a signed document from Catherine herself, which she thought was a simple insurance appraisal form, acknowledging the terms of the loan. This was the first tremor she would have felt, the realization that the necklace wasn't a simple asset. Her lawyer, likely realizing he was out of his depth, went quiet. Now for the trap. Mr. Dubois and I knew that Catherine's new partner, Julian, was motivated by status and money. Catherine's value to him was tied to her perceived wealth, with the necklace as her crown jewel. We needed to bait them into making a move that would expose them both. Mr. Dubois, through his vast network of high-end jewelers and auction houses, began to subtly circulate a rumor. He let it be known that the legendary Beaumont earrings, the matching pair to the necklace which had been separated from the set in the 1940s, had been located. He hinted that a private, incredibly discreet sale was being arranged, and that the owner of the Beaumont necklace would have the exclusive first right of refusal. The price would be astronomical, but for a collector, uniting the set would be the coup of a lifetime. It was a complete fabrication, of course. The earrings were sitting in a vault in Geneva, owned by the same trust as the necklace. But Catherine and Julian didn't know that. As expected, the rumor reached them. I know this because Catherine's best friend, who was horrified by the cheating and has been a quiet source of information, told me that Catherine was ecstatic. She saw it as her chance to solidify her status, to become the woman who reunited the legendary Beaumont set. Julian was apparently even more excited, pushing her, telling her this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The problem, of course, was money. They didn't have the kind of cash needed for such a purchase, which meant they would need to leverage their only asset, the necklace itself. They would have to either sell it or use it as collateral for a massive loan, and that is precisely what I was waiting for. To make the bait even more enticing, Mr. Dubois arranged for a representative from the fictional seller of the earrings to contact Catherine. The representative informed her that, to verify her right of first refusal, she would need to provide a certified appraisal and proof of ownership of the necklace from a reputable firm. She took the bait. Last Thursday, she scheduled an appointment with Sotheby's for a private appraisal. My lawyer was notified immediately through a back channel. The stage was set. The players were in position. Catherine was about to walk into a room, believing she was about to secure her future. In reality, she was walking into a carefully constructed legal ambush, and the priceless necklace around her neck was about to become the millstone that would drag her down. Update 2. 2 weeks later. The events of the past week have unfolded with the beautiful, inevitable precision of a Swiss watch. The quiet support from this community continues to be a welcome anchor in this storm. Catherine arrived at Sotheby's for her appraisal appointment last Thursday. She was with Julian, both of them dressed to the nines, playing the part of the wealthy power couple. They were escorted to a private viewing room where a senior gemologist and a legal representative from Sotheby's were waiting. What Catherine didn't know was that my lawyer, Mr. Harding, and a representative from the Beaumont Family Trust were waiting in an adjacent room connected by a discreet audio link. The appraisal began as expected. The gemologist examined the necklace with reverence, confirming its authenticity and its flawless condition. He spoke of its history, its craftsmanship. Catherine and Julian were beaming, their victory almost within reach. The gemologist gave a preliminary valuation that was even higher than they had anticipated. Then came the turn. The Sotheby's legal representative cleared his throat. His tone shifted from deferential to professional. Before we can proceed with a formal certificate of appraisal, we need to address a small matter of provenance. Our records indicate this piece is the property of the Beaumont Family Trust. We just need to see the documentation of the transfer of ownership to you. Catherine, ever the performer, gave a light laugh. Oh, it was a gift from my former fiancé, Thomas Beaumont, a premarital gift. It's all very straightforward. I see, the lawyer said. The issue is, the trust has a rather strict policy regarding its pieces. They are almost never gifted outright. We have a flag on this piece in our system. We are legally obligated to contact the registered owner, the trust, to confirm the transfer before we can appraise or broker it. The color began to drain from Catherine's face. Julian, who had been lounging in his chair like a king, sat up straight. This is ridiculous, he snapped. It's her property. If you won't appraise it, we'll take it somewhere else. The Sotheby's lawyer remained calm. You are free to do so. However, you will find that any reputable house will run into the same flag in the International Art and Jewelry Database. In fact, now that you have presented it here, we are required to file a report. Attempting to sell or secure a loan against a disputed piece of this value can have serious legal implications. The trap had sprung. She was caught. She couldn't sell the necklace. She couldn't use it as collateral. The multi-million-dollar asset she thought she possessed was, in her hands, nothing more than a beautiful, worthless rock. It was at that moment that my lawyer, Mr. Harding, chose to make his entrance. He walked into the room, calm and imposing, and handed Catherine's lawyer, who had accompanied them, a folder. This should clarify things, Mr. Harding said. Inside the folder was a copy of the signed loan agreement for the necklace, a formal demand for its immediate return to the trust, and a notice of intent to file a civil suit for misappropriation of assets and potentially press criminal charges if it was not returned within 24 hours. The scene, as it was described to me later, was pure chaos. Julian, realizing he had attached himself to a woman who not only had no money but was now in serious legal trouble, stood up and walked out of the room without a word. He left Catherine there alone to face the consequences. Her power couple fantasy dissolved in an instant. Catherine's lawyer, after a quick, panicked reading of the documents, advised her to return the necklace immediately. She had no choice. She took it off, her hands shaking, and handed it to the trust representative. The symbol of her grand betrayal was no longer hers. She left Sotheby's alone, stripped of her prize, her partner, and her dignity. The fallout has been swift. Julian has, predictably, vanished. He has blocked her number and disappeared from her life. He was a parasite, and the host was no longer viable. Catherine's legal troubles are just beginning. The trust is suing her for damages, for the security risks she exposed the necklace to, and for the legal fees incurred in its recovery. Her lifestyle consulting business has collapsed, as her reputation in the wealthy circles she catered to is now ruined. The story of the girl who tried to steal the Beaumont necklace is a cautionary tale being whispered at every charity gala and country club in the city. She has been bombarding me with messages, of course. Emails, texts, voicemails left with my assistant. They are a pathetic mix of rage, threats, and tearful pleas for forgiveness. She blames me for everything, for humiliating her, for ruining her life. She still doesn't understand. I didn't ruin her life. I just arranged for her to face the reality she had created. Final update. 3 months later. It's been 3 months since the day at Sotheby's. The apartment is quiet, the legal battles are winding down, and my life is my own again. The Beaumont necklace is back where it belongs, resting in a climate-controlled vault, its legacy untarnished. The conclusion to Catherine's story is as predictable as it is just. Her lawsuit with the trust was settled out of court. She had no legal standing, and her lawyer knew it. She was forced to sign a humiliating public retraction and a non-disclosure agreement, and a judgment was placed against her for the legal fees, a debt that will follow her for years. Without Julian, without the necklace, and without my financial support, her world shrank with brutal speed. She couldn't afford her trendy apartment or her designer lifestyle. Her wealthy friends, who were only ever interested in her proximity to my money and status, abandoned her. The consulting business is a memory. I heard through a distant acquaintance that she had to move back to her hometown, into a small apartment paid for by her parents. She's working as an administrative assistant at a real estate office. The life of glamour she thought she had secured was a mirage, and it vanished the moment she was held accountable. I received one final handwritten letter from her about a month ago. It was different from the angry, desperate emails. It was a letter of surrender. She apologized. She said she was arrogant and foolish, that she had been seduced by a lifestyle she thought she deserved, and that she had destroyed the only real and valuable thing in her life, my love and trust. She said she finally understood that the necklace was never the prize. The man who offered it to her was. I read the letter, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of something other than cold anger. It wasn't forgiveness. It was closer to pity. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Our story was over. The revenge was never about humiliating her, though that was an unavoidable byproduct. It was about protecting my family's legacy and enforcing a simple, immutable law of nature. Actions have consequences. She made a calculated bet that she could betray me and walk away with the spoils. She miscalculated the value of the asset and the strength of the opponent. My life is moving forward. My business is thriving. I've spent more time with my family in the last 3 months than I had in the previous 3 years. I even had dinner with Mr. Dubois last week, and we shared a bottle of wine and a quiet toast to tradition and to lessons learned. The other night I was at a charity event, and a woman I know, the wife of a business associate, came up to me. She lowered her voice. I heard what happened with Catherine. I just want to say, good for you. Some people need to learn that you can't just take things that don't belong to you. And that's the final truth. Catherine thought she could take my family's history, my trust, my future, but those things were never hers to take. She tried to steal a legacy, and in the end, she's the one who was left with nothing. The necklace is safe, and so am I. The books are balanced. The trade is closed,